People always ask me why I don't visit my hometown, why I won't drive through Ohio, why I flinch when someone leaves a basement door open. I usually lie. I say I had a rough childhood. I say my family is complicated. But the truth is something I've never said out loud. Not to my therapist, not to my wife, not even to myself most days. My name is Daniel. I'm 36 years old. And when I was 13, something in a basement ate my little brother. My mom died on a Tuesday. I remember because she'd promised us pancakes that weekend. She had one of those aneurysms that doesn't warn you. She was folding laundry. She sat down on the edge of the couch, and then she was gone. Eli was 10. He didn't cry at the funeral. He just kept asking when she was coming home. I was 13, and I was supposed to be the strong one. So I held his hand and told him she was in heaven now. Our dad wasn't in the picture. Hadn't been since I was small. So we were sent to live with Aunt Carol. She was Mom's younger sister. We loved her. She used to take us to the zoo every summer. She smelled like vanilla and old books, and she always had butterscotch candies in her purse. The problem was Carol lived in a tiny studio apartment, 3 states away. There wasn't room for 2 grieving boys and all our stuff. So she did something I'll never forget. She used part of the life insurance money to buy us a real house. The house was on Larkin Street, in a quiet little town in southern Ohio. 2 stories, white siding, a big front porch with a swing. Eli ran through every room screaming because he'd never had his own bedroom before. Carol cried in the kitchen when she saw the bay window. I remember thinking, for the first time since Mom died, that maybe we'd be okay. Maybe this would be a fresh start. That feeling lasted about 6 days. The basement door was in the kitchen, tucked behind the pantry. The previous owners had painted it the same color as the wall, like they didn't want anyone to notice it was there. The first time Carol opened it to show us the laundry hookups, the air that came up smelled wrong. Not musty, not damp. Wrong. Like meat left in a cooler too long. Eli wouldn't go down. He just stood at the top of the stairs and shook his head. Carol laughed and said the previous owners must have had a mildew problem. I pretended to agree. But I never wanted to go down there either. A week into living there, I was alone in the kitchen, making a sandwich. Carol was at work. Eli was upstairs watching cartoons, and I heard her. I heard our mother. Clear as day, coming from behind the pantry door. She said my name.
Danny.
That's what only she called me. Everyone else called me Daniel or Dan. I dropped the knife. I stared at that door. And then I heard it again.
Danny, sweetheart, come down here. I need to talk to you.
I ran. I ran up the stairs and locked myself in my room. And I didn't come out until Carol got home. I didn't tell Eli. I told myself I'd imagined it. Grief does things to a kid. I'd read that somewhere. The brain plays tricks. I convinced myself it was a daydream, a waking nightmare, something I needed to suppress. So I buried it. I went on with my life. I started 7th grade. Eli started 5th. We made friends. We rode bikes. For about 3 weeks, I almost forgot. And then I came home from school one day and found Eli sitting on the kitchen floor, talking to the basement door. He was just sitting there, cross-legged, 6 inches from the door. His little face was streaked with tears, but he was smiling like a kid on Christmas morning. And he was saying,
I miss you too, Mommy. I miss you so much.
I felt my whole body go cold. I said his name. He didn't even look at me, he said.
Mom's in the basement, Danny. She wants to see us. She said she's been trying to come home.
I grabbed him. I pulled him away from that door. He started screaming. He started kicking me. I'd never seen him like that. Not even at the funeral. I told Carol that night. I told her everything. She sat down on the edge of my bed and she held my hand and she explained very gently that this was a normal part of grieving, that children sometimes invent comforting voices, that she'd been hearing her sister too in dreams. I wanted so badly to believe her. I wanted so badly to be wrong. But I'd heard it. I'd heard my mother's voice, and it wasn't comforting. It wasn't gentle. It was hungry. That was the night it came upstairs for the first time. I woke up around 2 a.m. to a soft sound at our bedroom door. We shared a room back then. Eli was scared to sleep alone. The sound was a fingernail, just one, tracing the wood, slow, patient. And then I heard her voice, my mother's voice, right outside the door.
Boys, Mommy's home. Open the door. I've missed you so much.
Eli sat straight up in his bed. I could see his eyes shining in the dark. He whispered,
Mom?
I clamped my hand over his mouth and held it there until the scratching stopped. In the morning, the door was fine. No marks, no scratches, nothing. Carol made us waffles and asked why we looked so tired. Eli stared at his plate. I stared at the basement door across the kitchen. I remember thinking very clearly that we were not safe in this house. I remember thinking I needed to protect my brother. I remember thinking I was the older one and it was my job. I was 13 years old. I had no idea what I was dealing with. It came back every night after that. Always after Carol fell asleep. Always between 2 and 4 a.m. Sometimes it just stood there, breathing. Sometimes it scratched. Sometimes it spoke. It always sounded exactly like Mom. The cadence. The little laugh she did when she was about to tease us. The way she'd say,
My boys.
when she was tucking us in. It had every detail. It had everything. Except it would sometimes get a word wrong. It would say,
Open the door, my children.
instead of,
My boys.
and every time it slipped, my stomach would drop because I'd remember what was really standing out there. I started catching Eli at the basement door more often. I'd come home from school and find him whispering through the crack at the bottom. I'd wake up at night and find his bed empty and have to drag him back from the kitchen. He stopped eating much. He stopped playing. His teachers called Carol about his grades. She thought it was grief. I tried to tell her again. I tried to tell her what was happening. She hugged me and said therapy might help. She made us an appointment with a woman named Dr. Hollis. Eli wouldn't speak to her. I didn't know how to explain something I didn't believe myself. One night, the scratching got bad. Really bad. It was clawing at the door, tearing at it. And Mom's voice was on the other side, and it wasn't gentle anymore. It was screaming,
Let me in. Let me in. I gave birth to you. I died for you. Open the door, Daniel. Open the door right now.
Eli was crying so hard, he was shaking. I held him against my chest. I told him over and over.
That's not Mom. That's not Mom. That's not Mom.
After about 10 minutes, it just stopped, like someone had unplugged it. The hallway was silent. And then we heard footsteps. Slow, wet, going back down the stairs. The next morning, I checked the basement door. There were scratches now, deep ones, long gouges in the wood, like something had tried to claw its way through. I showed Carol. She went pale. For the first time, she really looked at me. She said maybe we'd had an animal get in, maybe a raccoon. Maybe we should call someone. She set the appointment for that Friday. We didn't make it to Friday. It was a Thursday. Carol was working a double. I'd fallen asleep on the couch watching TV. I don't know what time it was when I woke up. The TV was off, the lights were off, and I was alone. I called for Eli. No answer. I went upstairs. His bed was empty. I came back down. And then I heard her. I heard our mother. Soft, calm, loving, from the basement.
It's okay, Eli. Come give Mommy a hug. I've been waiting so long. I'm not mad. I just want to see my baby.
The basement door was open. I ran to the doorway. I stood at the top of those stairs. The light was off down there, but I could see something at the bottom. I could see Eli. He was standing in the dark, halfway down the basement steps. And he was talking.
Are you really hurt? Mom?
And the voice. Oh, God. The voice said,
Of course I am, baby. Come here.
Come down. I missed you so much.
I screamed his name. I screamed it so loud my throat tore. He turned and looked up at me. And he smiled. He smiled like everything was finally okay. And then he kept walking down. I tried to follow him. I swear to God I did. But the second my foot hit the top step, something changed in the air. The whole basement went dark, like ink had spilled into it. The smell hit me. That meat cooler smell, only 100 times worse. And I heard something I'll never be able to describe. It wasn't a scream, it wasn't a roar. It was the sound of something opening, something wet and enormous opening up. And then I heard Eli say,
Mommy?
one more time, very small, very confused. And then, nothing. I don't remember running. I don't remember dialing 911. The next thing I remember is sitting on the front porch with a police officer's jacket around my shoulders. There were red and blue lights everywhere. Carol was on her knees in the yard, sobbing. They told me later they searched the entire basement. The windows were sealed. The walls were solid. There was no way out. There was no Eli. There was just a pool of his blood on the concrete floor. Just a pool of his blood. And nothing else. Not a footprint. Not a hair. Not a thread of his pajamas. The police questioned me for hours. They questioned Carol. They questioned the neighbors. They had dogs and divers and detectives, and every single one of them came to the same impossible conclusion. A 10-year-old boy had walked into a sealed basement and ceased to exist. The case is still open. It's been open for 24 years. There's a folder in a filing cabinet in Ohio with my brother's name on it, and it will never be closed. We stayed in that house for 4 more months. We had no money to move. Carol couldn't sleep. Carol couldn't eat. And the thing in the basement didn't stop. It started using both their voices. Eli's voice begging me through my bedroom door.
Please come. Let me in. Please. I'm so cold. Why did you leave me down there?
Mom's voice telling me.
You let your little brother die.
You were the older brother. It should have been you.
Some nights, it would do both at once. Eli crying. Mom screaming. Right outside my door. I stopped sleeping. I aged 10 years in those 4 months. Carol finally sold the house. At a massive loss. We moved to a tiny rental in Pennsylvania. The first night there, I lay in my new bed and waited for the voices. They never came. They never came again. Not once in 24 years. Whatever it was, it couldn't leave that house. It couldn't follow us. I went to therapy for years. I told them my brother had been abducted. I let them think I'd repressed the trauma. It was easier than the truth. I tried to forget. I went to college. I got married. My wife is the kindest woman I've ever known. We have a daughter. Her name is Eliana. She's 7. She has my brother's eyes. And about 3 years ago, I made a mistake. I started researching the house. I told myself I just needed closure. I told myself I just wanted to know who'd lived there before us. I told myself I wasn't going to find anything. I was wrong. The house on Larkin Street was built in 1923. Between 1928 and the present day, 7 children have disappeared from that property. 7. Always between the ages of 8 and 12. Always at night. And every single time, the only thing left behind was a pool of blood in the basement. Sometimes on the floor, sometimes on the stairs. The newspapers called it the Larkin Street Curse. The police called it unsolved. I know what it really is. I know exactly what's in that basement, and I know it's still there. The house has changed hands 11 times since we sold it. It's empty right now. Has been for 2 years. Nobody stays long. Sometimes I look it up on the real estate sites, just to see if anyone's brave enough to move in. Sometimes, very late at night, when my wife and daughter are asleep, I sit in my kitchen with the lights off, and I think about driving back there. I think about standing on that porch one more time. I think about opening that basement door and finally asking the thing that ate my brother why it picked us. Why it picked him? Why I didn't go down those stairs after him? Why I'm still alive when he's not? I never do it, of course. I have a family now. I have a daughter who needs her father. But last week I was tucking Eliana in, and as I was turning off her light, she said something. She said,
Daddy, who's the boy that talks to me from the closet?
my blood went cold. I asked her what she meant. She said,
The little boy, he says his name is Eli. He says he's my uncle. He says he's been looking for you for a really long time.
I haven't slept since. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I know one thing. Whatever ate my brother 24 years ago, it found me. And now it's found my daughter. And it's not done yet.